on this thing where people are facing here. This is like being in really, really sacred ground. And I want people to really appreciate this moment. First, that is a maguey plant. Why is that important? Does anyone know what the Taínos used the maguey for? A lot of things, but they used the maguey for one particular thing. What was that?
Alcohol.
No, sir. They didn't do it. That is Mexican. Okay. Got it wrong. What? This was used to make something that Puerto Ricans still use, that all over the world people use, is called la hamaca. The word hamac. Hamaca is an Arawak word. Okay? And what is the importance of this? You had to dry this. You had to take the fiber. I want you to listen to this. The fibers of the maguey are the strongest fibers of any plant, including the silk worm, which is, silk. Its thread is very, very hard. This was used when you began to create the big, big ships. To anchor the ships, you needed the rope of the Henneken. That's called Henneken, not the beer. This is called Henneken. It is, I was trying to ask Natasha to answer the question, what was made out of there, but she's not able to answer because she skipped. The word hamaca, is an Arawak word. It's one of the major contributions that the Taínos made. A plant of the maguey is here. Why? Because down there is a Taíno settlement. Okay, we could think they have found, that's what the mayor was telling you, that there has been doing a lot of excavation there. And you heard from Moises, who said the ancient name, and Juan Antonio Correger says this in one of his poems, the real name of Ciales may have been Cibales. Okay? They took out the B and then turned it into Ciales. So, I want you to think about what we experienced at the Villalobos. Thousands of years of that grass done in that way. Now you may think, well, there was nothing. Try to do that. And try to do it with the precision that they did it. They didn't have measurements. They didn't have a ruler. This is all a very scientific notion of how you did mathematics in a different way. And this is important because Juan Antonio Correger was born in this town. Our center is named after him. Why is our center named after him? Because Juan Antonio Correger spent the last 10 years of his life working to free the political prisoners, to working to advance the work of the Puerto Rican diaspora. And he's the first leader of the independence movement who placed the Puerto Rican diaspora in a place of leadership. He writes a book called El Problema de la Guerra Popular en Puerto Rico, and this book centers the diaspora in terms of the role that we could play. In 1980, Juan Antonio is in Chicago. He goes to visit the political prisoners, and he goes to visit the 4 women who are incarcerated. 2 of those were Alicia Rodriguez and Ida Luz Rodriguez. And he's so impressed by the fact that these 2 sisters had decided to give their all for the independence of Puerto Rico. They grew up in Chicago. They came from working family. And he goes visits her, and he's totally moved by that experience. By the way, he was staying in my house, and I have a little living area in my basement, and that's where he used to stay. Early in the morning, he's coming up the stairs, and he hands me a written manuscript. And in that manuscript, he had written this poem, Boricua en la Luna. Let me tell you something about this poem. It is right now probably one of the most important songs of the Puerto Rican diaspora. Every single Puerto Rican musician, from Roy Brown to Andres Jimenez, Lucecita Benitez, Cultura Profética. I mean, I can show you every genre, including Latin jazz. And in every genre, this poem appears. So, this poem, which is now the anthem of the Puerto Rican diaspora, Boricua en la Luna, was written in Chicago. Obviously, I'm honored it was my house, but more important, it was in Chicago, about the political prisoners. And so, when he died, I want you to know, Chicago led the procession. We came from the Ateneo, which is the most important cultural institution in Puerto Rico, founded in 1879. Juan Antonio was honored by them as the national poet of Puerto Rico. And they're in this beautiful space that I'm going to show you on Sundays, right next to El Viejo San Juan. In that beautiful building, we did the wake of Juan Antonio Correa. It was out of this world. Every singer in Puerto Rico, but from all kinds of work, every leader in Puerto Rico came to that funeral, that wake in El Ateneo puertorriqueño. From there, I want you to know, literally from Old San Juan, all the way to the Ciales Plaza where we were at, there were literally thousands and thousands of cars in this caravan. It was one of the largest funerals in Puerto Rico's history. I was very honored that his wife, who was my dear friend, an amazing poet on her own right, Consuelo Lee Correter. By the way, if you go on the path that we went on 149 to Fronton, there's a high school there that has its name after Juan Antonio Correter, and it has this beautiful mural of Don Juan and Doña Consuelo. And Doña Consuelo told me, I want you to take charge of all of the burial process for Juan Antonio. I mean, I cried. It was one of the most, obviously, momentous occasions of my life. And I wanted to share this because this is things that are never written. But if you came here, I wanted you to understand how linked we are to Correter and to his wife, and that she would select me to do everything here. And I was relatively young and scared because you're dealing with the top notch of Puerto Rican intellectuals, I mean artists, musicians, poets. And I had to figure out who could speak, who could not speak, all of that stuff. And I'm telling you, that burial of Juan Antonio Correger was magical. We get to the plaza. Cars, now the plaza's over there, but there were cars all the way here where people could not get out. The cemetery is right here, right where we were going up on 149. You'll see it right there. He's buried there. You could not move. Every house in the around Ciales, right where we were at, like right where the Museo del Café is at, all the way down. There were people, literally thousands of people on top of roofs. It is estimated that there were over 30,000 people right there. That's not to count all the cars that never made it. And this was an amazing moment, I think, in the life of this town and of Puerto Rico and of us. I went back to Chicago and I proposed to our board of directors that it should be named after him, our center. Our center is the Puerto Rican Cultural Center Juan Antonio Correger. We began to talk about them again. Right here is a monument to my brother and Clarisa's father, Oscar Lopez Rivera. And I think you may not know this, but the campaign to free the campaign to free the political prisoner was a huge campaign after 1992. But the campaign to free my brother was one of the most impressive campaigns in the history of Puerto Rico. In more than 40 towns, people would set up prisons and the plaza and literally taking turns calling the attention of Oscar in prison. I mean, you had mayors, you had senators, you had all kinds of people going in there, writers, musicians. This coming week is going to be, next coming month is one of the biggest festivals in Puerto Rico, de la calle San Sebastián. That's what we're going to be at. There are thousands of people there, and this year it is dedicated to an amazing Puerto Rican personality, the greatest Puerto Rican filmmaker, Jacobo Morales, who, by the way, Bad Bunny pays homage to. And Jacobo Morales was one of those people that went into the prison. One of Correger's best friend was Jacobo Morales. So I tell you this because I want you to try to make the political connections of this trip with Chicago, with our indigenous past, with obviously what I think is the future of Puerto Rico. When you can come to this town, a Catholic town, a very conservative town that elects the second mayor of Puerto Rico, Jesus Resto, who is an openly gay man. You know how difficult that is to have that happen in the middle of this conservative area? That doesn't happen almost anywhere else. And so for me to be able to make that connection between Jesus and what he wants to do here, to make the connection of agrocomercial with the future of Ciales and the self-sustaining economy that Ciales can have. To me, this was obviously the treat that I wanted to give you guys. I wanted this trip to be sort of an unfolding of a journey. If you've ever read one of the greatest books is obviously Homer's the Odyssey, and it's all about a journey, right? And I hope that someday someone would write an odyssey about a journey of the Puerto Rican people, because this is a journey. And there's so many things that make us who we are, dating back thousands of years to our indigenous past, to the present, and obviously to the future. Notice this is the moon for the head. By the way, the original bust of this is in the Cultural Center in Chicago, and it's going to be part of our archives in Chicago. So the people who made this gave it to us. Okay, so I really wanted to share this with you. I think I wanted for you to understand why we did this. I think today and since last Friday, I mean, in 1 week, you have seen a Puerto Rico that most people in Puerto Rico know nothing about, all right? They know nothing about. You have gone through a journey of Puerto Rican history that is thousands of years with our Taíno, the performance in the Caguana ceremonial grounds, and obviously the amazing parrandas that most people have never experienced. The parranda that we experienced last night, or the parranda that we experienced in Utuado last Saturday. And I want you to think about those parrandas, because there are no people on earth, wherever you go, that will find parrandas like the Puerto Rican parrandas. And as I was going last night, and we were going, I talked a little bit to Xavier, what excited me, what moved me, was to see the grandparents, the grandchildren, generations. And you say to yourself, the only way that you can do away with Puerto Rico is by driving us out of Puerto Rico, by gentrifying Puerto Rico. Because those Puerto Ricans, as long as they're here, they're gonna claim that heritage, and it's gonna be theirs. So anyhow, I wanted to share this with you. I hope you take some pictures here, and obviously in Oscar's monument here, that's the flag of Ciales. I want you to know, listen to this because this is really important. This is a public space. This is a government space. In Puerto Rico, it is illegal to fly the Puerto Rican flag by itself. To this day, it is illegal to fly the Puerto Rican flag by itself unless it's accompanied by the U.S. flag. The mayor of this town, who was a stateholder, said, I cannot, in conscience, put the American, this is a stateholder, put the American flag here. He decided that the only flag that would fly here, you're never gonna see this anywhere. This is a detail that none of you will ever know unless you were here. This is the only place where the flag of this town flies without the American flag. Okay?